So many women with low libido tell me that they feel like their bodies are broken. They feel like their bodies aren't working the way that they see on sex scenes and what they think everyone else's bodies are working like, and they feel let down. And that makes a lot of sense. So today I'm going to be talking about how it's so important to understand the science of female sexual functioning and also understanding your preferences to when you're starting to look at increasing your libido. Before we get into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Denton-Howes. I am a marriage and sex educator, and I have been specializing in helping women married to men want and enjoy it more in the bedroom for the last 5 years. And this is a huge area that we spent a lot of time in my program wanting it more. I think the most important thing to start off with is that women's bodies are not broken. The standard of what working is broken. And in this culture of miseducation and undereducation, I believe that it's super important for women to know the truth about what's really going on for them and be able to get rid of all that garbage and pseudoscience and cultural folklore about how we're actually supposed to function. In addition to that, it's so important to understand what your unique preferences are in the bedroom. Otherwise, you're always going to just default to what your husband enjoys or what you think you should be doing. Before we get into that, I want to acknowledge that there are a lot of barriers to educating yourself and learning about your body. It's not as simple as a 3-step process. It's more nuanced than that. The first barrier is cultural shame. If we're getting inundated by messages that sex is dirty, that your body is wrong, that female sexual pleasure is like icky and gross, then it becomes incredibly difficult to be exploratory and open and curious. And this can lead to a lot of avoidance and shutting down and just wanting to protect yourself. So it makes a lot of sense. If you want to move past this, just in a very baby steppy kind of way, then it's important to just start looking around you at the messages that are impacting you and decide for yourself what you want to let in and what you want to challenge. The second barrier I see is lack of reliable education. I know it can feel really scary to Google something, you don't know what's going to pop up on your screen or that people are going to know that is in your search history. It can be really difficult to find books that align with your values or that are really helpful. And unfortunately, I found that there can be a lot of information that just feels a lot of shamey, telling you to just do it or really glossing over the real challenges that women face. Unfortunately, this one is really a situation of trial and error. And I hope that you will, as I have, develop a keen sense of intuition for what's going to help you and harm you. And you're only going to know what's best for you as you sort of work through this over time. And you can practice on this video to see how you feel about the information that I'm offering you, because it may not be okay. And it is so much more important that you follow your own gut instinct than you sort of try to do what any gurus are talking about. So just really great job for getting started and having the courage to do this. The third barrier is not feeling safe. If you're in a relationship where you're worried about being judged, not accepted, you're worried about being criticized for taking too long, or that your preferences aren't exciting and intense enough in the bedroom, then that can be really difficult to create a container of curiosity and openness and wonderment and exploration. So safety is so critical, and I mean, it's not easy, but good communication and clear boundaries are a great place to start. So again, I want to reiterate that overcoming these barriers to understanding your body and your preferences aren't easy. And I don't think it's gonna just sort of dissolve with a few couple of things that you're doing. I think it's a practice over time that you just start to become aware of the challenges that you face and that all women are facing right now. And just know that you're not alone. So much solidarity and also so much compassion for ourselves for living in the world that we do right now. Taking all of that into account, learning about the science of female sexual functioning is so important when you're looking at increasing your libido. To give you an example of how this has impacted me, I want to share 2 critical pieces of information that I got early on in my journey. The first one is that the majority of women use clitoral stimulation for orgasm. I think it's about 70% of women. And this one really surprised me because I thought that the gold standard was to orgasm just with intercourse alone, never touch yourself, never talk. I mean, there's all sorts of parameters in terms of what's going to be successful. But this was such a huge relief for me. It really helped me just accept my body and see how it's beautifully designed and move forward with the exploration from there. It is so nice to know that I'm not broken. The second piece was learning about responsive desire. We're used to spontaneous desire. That's really what's depicted in sex scenes and basically any media that talks about sex. That's what you're going to see. And that's sort of that, oh, I want some sex. If I feel some tingling, I feel this attraction. It's really what horny and in the mood is depicting. And then you go from there. So that's what's leading the whole experience. Responsive desire is kind of what it sounds like. It's that you're responding to experiences. So what that looks like for me is I create opportunities to explore with no pressure, no goals, lots of acceptance, lots of love, lots of communication and boundaries. And I see where my body would like to go in that moment. This means that my sexual experiences are very different from week to week. And that's, I think, adds to the variety of life. So rather than looking for external ways to spice things up, I really go within and see where my body would like to go in that moment. And my husband has seen that over time, doing it that way helps us really explore in a much more connected way. I believe I learned these two things in the wonderful book, Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. I believe that she has a new version out. So if you are picking up that book, make sure you get the revised copy. It's a great place to start learning about the science of female sexual functioning. Understanding our preferences really is the second part of this, and you have to understand what your body likes in order to create an experience that you can look forward to. And that's the whole point, is to design something that's going to feel nourishing and relaxing and something that you don't want to miss in your daily schedule. So often what I find is that women will default to what their husband's preferences are. And this makes a lot of sense because the main plot line of most romantic comedies and romance novels is that this hunky hot guy in a cowboy hat and ripped jeans saunters into town. He's kind of a bad boy and he just makes her quiver with delight, and her body just responds in so many interesting ways, and she has no idea. She's so innocent and she doesn't know what's happening. Women are rarely taking the lead when it comes to their pleasure because it's seen as kind of slutty and just not, we don't want that. We just sort of want these like damsels in distress, like, oh, I guess that works. But actually it doesn't, and it creates a lot of pressure on men to know how their wives' bodies are functioning, and that's just like unrealistic. So instead of being the passive bystander in your pleasure, whether it's working for you or not right now, I really encourage all of us to be those mature, sophisticated women that we are and just, start learning about our bodies while still acknowledging the barriers that do exist for us. So here are 3 suggestions to get you started. The first one starts with what you don't like, owning the no. Otherwise, oh my gosh, there's no safety there. And this can be really scary because you may think, I may not like anything. If I say no to things, then my body doesn't work. And I promise you, there's always going to be something that you enjoy. And this brings me to the second suggestion I have, which is expanding your definition of pleasure to slightly more positive than neutral. If your husband strokes your hair and it's like, oh, that's not bad, it's not neutral, it's kind of nice. Great, that's pleasure. If your husband massages your back and it's like, oh, that's nice, no fireworks happening, but it feels pretty good, that's pleasure. If you are massaging your husband's hands or putting his hand on your cheek or anything like that, that is pleasure. It is a valid form. Suggestion number 3 is explore with all your senses and all your body parts. It's so easy with that narrow definition of media sex to only see our genitals and certain body parts as valid forms of pleasure. And it's just not true, and it's so unfortunate because you're really missing out on so many expansive opportunities for that connection and pleasure that really what sex is all about. Sex is not about achieving goals. It's not about getting something into something or having muscle contractions. It's about the outcome and the intention that you're looking for in your relationship, something that's going to create unity and bonding and closeness and togetherness and love and all that wonderful stuff. So even though this is a pretty brief overview of what I believe is the third requirement of desire, the others being unlearning toxic culture messages and emotional and physical safety with your husband, And I plan on doing many, many more videos all about this with much more detail. I hope that you've gotten some practical suggestions out of this and maybe move you forward in that direction. Thank you so much for watching. It has been a pleasure to be here with you. If you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe and like the video if it has been helpful. It really does help the channel grow and help me reach more women who would like to feel less alone and less broken. I hope to see you in the next video.